We're going to move swiftly on now with some more passionate debate. Why owning a football club makes sense or makes no sense. To help us, 3 clubs are represented. Club Brugge, FC Basel and Watford. If you could all join us, gentlemen. Give them a warm hand. Take a sit there. Make yourself comfortable. Okay, a word of presentation for each man. Bart is the furthest away from me. President of Belgium's Club Brugge, or as if you have a French accent, we would say FC Bruges, if that's okay with you. You prefer Brugge? Okay. Brugge. You've been the president for nearly 4 years now?
Yep.
Okay. If you notice a smile on his face, it's probably because his team is top of the Belgian league after this weekend's 2-2 draw away to the rivals at Anderlecht. Club Brugge are also top of the Europa League group that you're in after 5 matches, with just 1 more match to play. You told me that you only earned the 0-0 draw against Torino because you have a very good goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But then when you have Michel Prudhomme as your coach, then you expect to have a good goalkeeper at the club.
That's true.
Remembering what a fantastic goalkeeper he was. And I also promised not to mention that the club twice reached European finals and twice lost to English teams at the favourites, Liverpool at both times. And I was supposed not to mention that. I'm sorry. I forgot not to mention it. Bernhard Heusler is president of Switzerland's FC Basel. Again, if you prefer it in French, we would say FC Bâle, which the French enjoy making jokes with that word because it's the same word which means hole. Sometimes you can talk about a hole in the... Anyway, it's not a good joke. Ask somebody to translate it. I shouldn't be going down that road. Anyway, if you're from England, not from France, if you're from England, you're probably wondering how on earth this team keeps beating the best that England can put up in the Champions League. In recent seasons have beaten, of course, Manchester United, Chelsea twice last season, and Liverpool already in this year's Champions League, taking some revenge for Club Brugge against Liverpool. And next week there is a big match away to Liverpool where if you get a draw, then you will eliminate the Reds and you'll continue in the Champions League. That's a good reason to already have a smile on your face. You can also, if you watched the match last week against Real Madrid, you could see that Real Madrid were happy to come away with a 1-0 victory, which was somewhat fortunate. Bernhard has a smile on his face also because FC Basel won the Swiss Championship the past 5 seasons. And last weekend, thanks to a 94th minute goal, his team won here in Zurich against the big rivals, FC Zurich, to stretch their lead on top of the table. So when you arrived this morning, I noticed you disguised yourself, so not to be attacked by people in the streets. Gino Pozzo is the owner of Watford Football Club, a football club to the north of London, which was made famous by a former chairman, Elton John. You remember Elton John? Gino will be singing some Elton John songs during the lunch break. So that's I forgot to mention that to you when you were... Watford, of course, are aiming for promotion to the Premier League in England. Now, we have 2 leaders in the leagues here. Let me tell you that when Marcel Schmidt telephoned Gino, Watford were top of the league. So earlier we talked about the curse on Benfica. Now we have the curse of Marcel Schmidt. If he calls you, don't answer the phone. Okay? Watford have now started to drop places ever since Marcel telephoned, but the season is very long. The English second division, if you're not familiar with it, has 24 clubs in this second division. So you have 46 matches, and then maybe playoffs to go up to the Premier League. It's a marathon.
Over 50 matches at the end of the season with the cups and everything else.
Yeah. Crazy. Only in England could we have such a situation. Now, Gino runs Watford, but also in the family, you are probably aware that we have the Udinese in Italy and also Granada in Spain. So it's a unique situation where one family is taking care of 3 clubs in 3 different countries. And obviously we want to know how that works, and is it a model for other people to follow? Does it make more sense to have 3 clubs in 3 countries, or just 1 club in 1 country? Okay, let's start with Bart. Your club's motto is, if I understand correctly, no sweat, no glory.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Before you talk about the sweat, perhaps you could tell us how you personally got involved in the Club Brugge and why.
I was a former football player at lower level, so I was passionate by football. But I did law, I then business school, started my own business, and at a certain moment I was always a fan of Club Brugge, and I was helping them with the plans of a new stadium in 2005 and 2006. And the president at that moment was Michel Doge, which is a FIFA member. And he says, okay, can you please help me? I did. I learned a lot about professional football in that period, because if you like to invest in a stadium, it's a huge risk for a club. So you need to know the business of football. But the project didn't went through, and so and in 2011 the club was on sportive side not doing very well. They had some cash on the account. We are almost the oldest club in Belgium, and next season we're gonna be next season 125 years old. We were a non-profit organization. It's not a socio club. We have about a parliament of 125 people who elects the president, so every 4 years, which was a self-destructing system, because the president was more involved to please the 125 people instead of what's happening on the pitch. And we are still playing in a very old stadium, which is a stadium that is owned by the city of Bruges. And we play with another professional team inside, Cercle Brugge, which makes it also very complicated and tough. And it's also they're last in the league. We are first, so it's also 2 different levels that you are cruising. And then I came in, and what happened? I have no interest. My goal was not to own a club. My goal was just to help the club to put the right structure which can face the challenges for the future. And that was all my mindset. And I advised the existing board, which were doctors, lawyers, and local businessmen of Bruges. I was living near Brussels, so far from Bruges. And I told them bluntly what was wrong and good. And they say, oh, we agree with you. We agree that we should change the club because there were 3 things. First, we like to compete and be #1 in Belgium. Secondly, we need a new stadium, our own stadium. And thirdly, we need a training facility. But with the membership, we don't gonna find the money to make that happen. So what I did is I let them talk their goals. Then after they told their goals, we explained to them that professional football was there was a lot of changes going on in football, and they were not aware of these changes. It's a complicated job to run a club. You're working with people, it's very international, a lot of rules are applying. And they say, oh, yes, it's definitely for professionals. And it took us about 2 years to get them from a socio club to today a profit organization. And at the end, they asked me to become the owner. And it was, and we did a vote, and there were only 3 members against it. So I'm pretty proud that we did a transition from a non-profit to a profit within 3 years, without being at the first page every day in the newspaper. And that today the fans are quite happy because they see that the club did a 360 turnaround completely about the way we are running the club. We attract again good players. We have a good good feeling about for everybody, fans and everybody. But they didn't want something. That's the only thing that we are still waiting, and we're still playing in an old stadium, and we don't have the training facility. But the plans are on the table. Normally, within 2 years, we're going to have that training facility, and within 5 years, we're going to play in our own stadium.
So things are moving forward in the way that you planned them. Did you hesitate when they said to you, "Come and join us"?
Yes.
Because lots of people think you have to be crazy to want to run a football club.
I don't think so. I have other business in real estate, and I have an investing fund. And I got quite experience in leisure business. And I believe that football is leisure number one. So and even we are living in a small country like Belgium with only 11 million people, it's a model which you can earn money and be successful at the same time. Because the Belgian fans, they maybe like Chelsea, but they're not the real fan of Chelsea or Bayern München. They like home-ground teams there because they speak the same language, and it's Brugge, it's not Bruges, it's Brugge. And so they recognize their stars in their own team. And I believe we have a great future, a much better future in Belgium being a top team than Barcelona or Bayern München, because I'm in the middle of the traffic of everything going to happen in Europe. We can sell to top teams, we can pick up from top teams who they don't treat well, and we make them better. We can buy from below, and we can give them, we can play Europa League every year. Not yet Champions League like they are better than us, but I hope to play one day also in Champions League. So I think we have a quite unique position, and this model is pretty interesting for a businessman to be successful.
I'll come back to you with some more detailed questions as we go along. Bernhard, you're a lawyer, yeah? You're supposed to be too smart to be involved in football. How did you get involved in FC Basel, and what have you been doing that's enabled you to go ahead and overtake all of your domestic rivals?
Okay, I got actually involved prior to getting a lawyer or becoming a lawyer. I got involved as a kid. I was a fan of the club since I can't think of anything. And I did all the career through the sectors of the stadium, the typical career of a fan, of a young kid who's loving the club. And then thereafter, on the pitch, I did not the career to the first team neither. And on the stands, I did never do the career to the main stand because I didn't want to be there, actually. And then I studied law. I was a lawyer, and somewhere in 2003, they had trouble in the club, a legal issue, and they retained or actually looked for a lawyer. And I was one of the lawyers that they picked to check. And so I get into this club that I had in my heart. And I was then sort of part of the board of the club. Then we had a crisis in 2006, and they needed somebody who represents the club to outside, to the media and to everybody who was criticizing the club, challenging the club, and they appointed me to be vice president, to be more credible. And thereafter, yes, in 2009, I took over the operations and the shares of the holding company, which holds 75% of the professional football club. And so I got involved to it step by step, and so nowadays I cannot say I'm a lawyer anymore. I am working for the club full-time. I'm counsel of a legal firm, law firm, and I'm serving as a board member in several companies, but the main profession is running the club and doing the best for it.
So what have you been doing in recent years that's enabled FC Basel to climb to the top in Switzerland?
It was not an easy change because my predecessor, the president at the time in 2009, she's a very rich lady. She invested a lot in the startup phase, I'd say, around 2000 in the club, and she did the ground for the development that we have today. And I knew exactly I will take over the shares and have the risk that I will not put in money. I want to strengthen the club, the organization, the structure, to change the philosophy, to have a club who can finance itself. and not to be dependent on one person owning the club or investing the club or paying the deficit at the end of the year. And now we have 5 years in a row where we were profitable at the end of the year, which is very important for us. So the profit is put into the reserves for the club in case of a year where we are suffering.
Oh, yes. Do you have anything against English clubs in particular, or it's just...
We actually love them. We read a lot about the curse against the FC Basel because we always lost against the English teams until the match in Manchester where we drew 3-3, and since then we have a run and we don't want to stop that next Tuesday.
We'll come back to that question a little later. Gino, I mentioned that the 3 clubs in your family. You've been running Watford since 2012?
Yes.
Almost immediately went up to the Premier League, very close. You're still fighting to come up to the top league in England. How does the relationship work between Watford and Udinese and Granada, and where did the idea come from originally?
Well, my family bought the club in Udine 30 years ago, and during the first 8-9 years the club was run in a more traditional way, so small club with limited resources, not very competitive, so you end up losing games and losing money, not a good combination. So eventually we tried to organize ourselves in a way that we could produce added value, and we started building this scouting system to be able to catch this, the more promising young players and be able to grow them inside the club. And with a longer term vision, eventually be able to get better player for our club. And in fact, through this vision, we were able to clearly move up the club to a different level, being able to compete in Italy with the top clubs, and become profitable. Now, during this process, you need to sign a lot of young players in order to be successful, and not all of them can come through directly into the first team. And we were struggling in loaning the players out because we were losing control, and we were really getting a lot of negative feedback from the player, from the agent, from everybody around. And so we end up looking for another club which could be used to control the development of the player that could not make it through. And we spot this initially a collaboration with Granada, which was in the 3rd tier of the...
third division in Spain.
The 3rd division in Spain, 2nd division B, the 3rd championship in Spain. And eventually we started just as a project in which our young player could develop, and eventually they end up winning 2 championships and move on to La Liga. And so that project came to a point in which we were actually looking for a new challenge, and we thought that English football was the next one. So we saw the opportunity in getting into a club which had similar characteristics as the other clubs in terms the right club to continue developing our model, and there were Watford coming.
So now the three clubs can loan each other different players. Is that how it works?
Yes. Well, more than anything else, you're taking advantage of common knowledge and common resources. So you might have players that don't quite work in a championship and are able to get a chance in another one. And by working with similar parameter, every club is run individually, and then you have a global approach to how you do things, but then you run it locally, because at the end, every club in each country has its own way to think about how to approach football. In Spain, in Italy, and England, you're talking about 3 different ways to see football. Really.
Yes, and it's a question of identity
exactly.
as well locally. Exactly. How do you deal with that question? In fact, of a club's identity, if like at Watford, you have lots of players coming in from different places. How does the local side of the club still manage in that situation?
Well, of course, it's a challenge, because at the end you bring up new ideas, to a club. But at the end, if you don't look globally at the opportunity you have, you end up underperforming. So I think the fan appreciate the fact that through this approach, we were able to give financial stability to the club and make it much more competitive of what the club was before. So it's not about the player that are playing, it's about the philosophy of the club.
So if Watford go up to the Premier League at the end of this season, which we hope for you, as long as Brighton go up at the same time, okay. You'll have 3 teams in 3 top divisions in Europe. Does that pose any problems as far as UEFA are concerned?
No, until we have more than one team competing in the same competition. There is really no problem with the integrity of the competition itself, and the rules set up that we cannot have more than one team competing at the same time in the same competition.
So you don't want to all qualify for the Champions League at the same time?
We'll do our best.
One at a time. Okay. Okay, very good. But the questions that you face in Belgium, do you find that they're different from the problems that your colleagues here might face? Is there something particular about your championship that provides challenges which are apart?
I think each country has its own particularities. I think our country, we are smashed between England and Germany, and that means that are 2 very attractive competitions. It's not a lot of Belgians also go to watch these leagues. We have very good Belgian players playing there also. But on the other hand, the fan base, the crowd has never been so high as today. TV rights have never been so high as today. And
what's the deal? So what's the deal in Belgium for TV rights?
It's 70 million euros, and for our club it's about 7 million euros, which is much better than the Swiss situation, for instance. But okay, we are far away. We can maybe increase it a little bit, but it's at this moment, these are the limits. And we also have, we all stick together with the first division teams to go together to the market. But I believe what we are facing today in Belgium, the difficulty is good facilities. We don't have the decent stadiums that we should have. And if we have one example, it's AA Gent, which is a club in Flanders that made a new stadium of 20,000 people. And the club did a huge increase of their budget. We did it without a new stadium. We increased it from 25 million to 35 million, not with transfers, just by activation of not in the stadium, but a site with the CRM, our data bank, and to get partners in contact with our fans. We have about 1 million fans in Belgium, and we really like to communicate with them 24/7 and to generate business for them. And this is working, little by little, but it is working. So I'm definitely, I believe the future seems for me, it's bright, and if we're going to have the new stadium, which is only a football stadium, because Brugge is a very little town near to the sea, and we cannot do other things into the stadium because we are not Brussels. It's too far from Brussels, too far from Antwerp. But we believe that we can pay the new stadium with the increase of the budget that we're going to make. So for us, give us the time, another 5 years, and we're going to be there. But we know our goal. We're never going to compete with the big clubs. We like to compete in Belgium. We like to be attractive in Europa League, maybe sometimes Champions League, and that's it.
Okay, so the aim for now is to be #1 in Belgium. 5 years, you said? Marcel, we'll bring him back in 5 years and see how he's got on, okay? But for #1 in Belgium at the moment, so things are on the right track. Bernhard, in Switzerland, you've already been #1 for the last 5 seasons. What does that mean for a club like yours when you've got to the top, you managed to stay there? Are you satisfied with that situation, or is it now possible to look beyond Switzerland into the European situation, or is it just too complicated? Remind us of the TV deal, for example, in Switzerland, which will make some of the people who support English football blink a little bit, because if you finish last in the Premier League, I think it was last season, Cardiff, they took home £63 million from the Premier League TV deal. In Switzerland?
We finished first, and we took away 2 million euro. This is the fact, and it's not, nobody can be blamed for that. It's the domestic market. We are in Switzerland. I think the last sentence my friend Bart just stated is the most important one. We are part of the Swiss market. This is our competition. This is our life. This is where we have to be first every year. This is where we have to develop. And based on that, we can think of challenging clubs in Europe, be it in the Europa League, be it in the Champions League. But we should never do the error, the mistake as responsibles for clubs to be sort of feel comfortable when we play against Real, feel great when we play against Chelsea, and think that this must be the same next year or over next year. We should always try to get back to our domestic market, to our business. And our business is, to some extent, limited in terms of merchandising, in terms of TV money. So we have to be more smart in other areas and to develop certain points, maybe, which can distinguish us from others and to give us the chance to win against better clubs that have more money available.
So what have you been doing? You don't want to tell us your secrets, perhaps, but what have you done that other Swiss clubs haven't done? I mean, how did you get ahead?
I think, I do not want to compare with other Swiss clubs, but we developed a lot, or we used a lot of means in the personal coaching of the team members. We tried to have an atmosphere in the club which gives the players the feeling that they have a lot of trust, that they have a group of people around them that estimate them as human beings, irrespective of whether they win on Saturday or lose. I think this is something which is extremely important. Furthermore, it's very important that the most important employee you have, the coach, can work freely, can use his competence with the team, and has no president and no other people in the club who believe that they are the better coaches than he is, so that he is strengthened until the end of his days in the club. And at some point in time, it always comes to an end. But the day before we change the coach, we 100% support him in his work. And I think this is very important, because this is underestimated, I think, often, because we all are also fans, and we all believe that we could do maybe a better job, not only as the striker, but also as the coach. And there we have to go a step back and think of what is our job here. And our job is to define a strategy, to live a philosophy for the club, and not to be a second striker or a third coach in the club. Which is a welcome sound, because we see lots of football presidents who think otherwise. Yes, Bart?
I'd like to add there something. If you have that philosophy, we have the same, because it's more a business philosophy, like you work with a CEO, like as shareholders. It's tough to find coaches who understand that, because a lot of coaches work in the old tradition way. So that's why we got difficulties to find the right coach. With Predom, we haven't now. Before we change it sometimes, and then press was telling us they don't know what they are looking for. We know exactly what we are looking for, but we didn't find on the market a coach who could live with that philosophy. Because at the end, we are giving him a lot of responsibilities. And sometimes a lot of coaches are taking responsibilities when it goes well, and when it goes wrong, it's the president and the board. And now, no, we don't say, we back you every time. It's a long-term view. It's 5 years, or whatever the time we're going to run a strategy with you. And that's different for the market. And that's my feel. It was hard to find the decent coach which understands your club, which understands your ambition as a club, and who can live with you together to and live in a very harmonious way, which means that press and all the pressure, because football is very conservative. For me, it's a very conservative business. All players, they like to say that they know everything about football, and you know nothing about it, and they protect themselves, and they pay themselves very well, and so. And if you break it through, then they are nervous. And that's what we do with Bruges, and I think they did it with Basel the same.
Scouting obviously is a big part of the business when you're playing in Belgium, Switzerland, countries where you can't compete with the kind of money we're talking about in the Premier League, obviously with this incredible TV deal they have in England. So to compete, as you're trying to do in European competitions, you rely on finding talent, training your own young players, and obviously one day having to sell them. You guys are doing that on a triple level. How have you put in place a system which has enabled you to find some great players over the years and make the profits which you can then put back into the football? I mean, look around now, you can see some top players around Europe who started out at Udinese.
Well, it's a system that requires that the organization works on its own, in terms that we need a longer term vision, so we need the people inside the club to organize that. Traditionally, choosing the player was the job of the sport director or the manager. But unfortunately, with us in a club like ours, manager or sport director might stay in the club for a short period of time. So that would not enable you to have the longer term vision. So we end up getting a group of people that have been working in the club for a much longer term and be able to share this philosophy. And
so that knowledge stays with you even when the coach moves on.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's a different approach, but that and of course, we are experiencing the difference between one coach and another, but where we are trying to keep on working in to create a structure independent from the coach that enables that the work is the same. Then of course the coach adds his own personality to the system, but it doesn't determine everything inside the club.
But how do you stay ahead of the competition today? I mean, we all know about scouting systems. We had when we were in Berlin, we were talking about Y-Scout, which is perhaps, I don't know if you use Y-Scout, you guys as well? There are other systems and other people around who are proposing all kinds of services. Everybody's after the same thing. How do you manage to have a step ahead and find people like Alexis Sanchez, for example?
Well, it was, of course, things are changing constantly. I remember that 15, 20 years ago, you just needed to go to an under-20 championship. There were very few scouts there, and you could basically sign the best player and come home, and it was very easy. And then you end up finding more and more scouts every time you go to that kind of competition.
Now you go to an under-20 tournament, the whole audience is made up of scouts.
Basically. Okay. And so you end up having a different needs, moving your age, the age at which you scout at a lower level, looking for different countries, looking for areas where there is less visibility, and enhancing your relation with the agents and with the scouts around.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the age situation. That's something we're going to talk about later with Ben on the agents panel. Is that a break for you as well? I mean, Bernhard, I know you have a young guy in your club who's being watched by many teams around Europe. Is this a problem for you guys, holding on to young talent and not being able to put them on certain contracts? Tell us about the situation with you.
Yeah, for sure. This is one of the big challenges nowadays. We invest, for our means, we invest a lot of money into our youth department because it's one of our main objectives that we have at least 1/3 of the players of the first squad developed in our own youth department. When we won against Manchester United, 8 out of 11 of the players on the pitch, starting 11, were from our own youth department, 8 out of 11, which was a huge figure, an enormous figure, which is not normal actually, but it is something that is part of our strategy, part of our philosophy, and therefore It has become more difficult, I think. Since I'm football, when I started, I had the impression that our young guys who turn to 16, 17, they are quite nervous, quite happy if they can sign with us a professional contract, which was more or less their objective, maybe. Nowadays, those who are talents which have already played in the first squad, etc., at the age of 17, they are reluctant to sign with us because they get so great offers from big clubs from England, from the big leagues, and for them it's a very difficult decision. And I am always against those who say, who criticize their attitude, who criticize the agents in this kind of situation. It is a difficult situation. We are not speaking of earning 50,000 euro more or less per year. We are speaking of a contract that they can sign at the age of 18 maybe, which has an impact on their whole life. And we cannot guarantee in Basel that they will not be injured heavily and suddenly their career ends at the age of 19. So we have to take that really serious. We have to build a trust with them so that they know, and we have to show the track record that you can leave our club at a certain point in time when everything is fine for you, when you're ripe to play in a big league. And in the recent years, this trust has worked, and the players signed with us at the age of 17, 18, and some of them left us already 1 year or 2 years later, which is normal.
So you've seen people leave, like Shaqiri, went to Bayern Munich, Salah went to Chelsea after helping beat them. So obviously it's important for you to be on this European window to also generate those kind of transfers.
Yeah, I think there we have to be realistic. It's only the games on European level and for the national teams that generate these kind of opportunities that the player from the FC Basel can move on to Bayern Munich, to Chelsea, to the big clubs. We have one who is playing now at Barcelona, who was in our youth department. He did not go directly to Barcelona. Ivan Rakitic, he came from the Basel youth department at the age of 9, he started. Then he went to Schalke, Sevilla, now Barcelona, which is a beautiful career. And the same Kuzmanovic at Milan. You see, there are a couple of guys who were in our youth department who did the steps, and we have to prepare them for that, and we have to hope always that they have also the environment, the personal, the family environment, who gives them the strength to say, listen, stay 2 years and then do in the right moment the right step.
Bart, you've come in from outside of football, and as you've just been saying, you've been discovering some of the football practices, the customs that have been around for a long time. How have you coped with various situations, such as the players' salary situation taking up so much of a club's revenue, and having to deal with agents, and the whole situation is going to change, of course, next year when the agents' license system is dropped by FIFA?
But you have to adapt yourself to the business model, so I don't see that as so different than others. You have to respect the logical things in the market, and you have to live with it and make the best out of it. And it's for us, it's also we invested a lot in the youth academy. We are not so far as Basel. It's now the 3rd year, and we try to have as many young players to become in our first team. We have the same challenges, I think, as they have. Like a lot of Belgium and Swiss players are quite, our national teams are doing well. So a lot of these players are followed by English and German teams. We got Bacca. Bacca went to Sevilla and won Europa League. So I think you're right. You try to be unique. That's what we like to be, unique in our small market. So we don't focus on too many players, young players, but we rather like to focus on some players, but to treat them very well as a human being, and to help the whole environment, the family. We are a bit looking for also players with the right mentality as we have as a club. So we don't kind of take, if a very good player has not the right mentality, we say no, it's not for us. And you can go to another team. So we are not always open for every good player. He should really fit in our philosophy And we try to speak it through very early to say, you're going to have definitely chances in Brugge, earlier than you go to a German team or an English team. But a lot of these young guys at 16, 17, they sign with an English team. And then they come together at Everton or whatever. And they are with 80. And then they take only the strongest one. And a lot of these guys are not ready for this fight. And then they come back after 1 or 2 years. And they say, yeah, after 1 or 2 years, the school is gone, the family has broken, and they have money problems. So we'd like to avoid that kind of things. We make clear choices. We go for our culture, Flemish culture, Flemish way of education. We prepare you for the next step. And we have players, that's good. We can show to the players and to the agents that we have nice stories, bringing players to the UK and to Germany or to other leagues. And that's the best way to make publicity. And we definitely let players go after certain years. We have now a very good goalkeeper, Matt Ryan, Australian national goalkeeper. Okay, he signed his contract for the next 3.5 years with us. But we are very open with him. If something comes up which is nice for his career, we are open to discuss that.
So maybe Watford needs a goalkeeper at the moment? No. You're okay. Okay. All right. How important is that? It's very interesting to hear both of you talking about almost like the DNA of a club, having a certain identity and fixing values on the image of the club and the people who represent your club. That's something which strikes me as more difficult for you in the situation you have at the moment, because when you're bringing players in and moving around perhaps a little bit more than in those clubs, a club's DNA and identity is maybe harder to seize, no?
Yes, but at the end, I think the fan takes pride from how the club behave, and the fact that we are consistently growing the club and making more competitive, and they see that the system works and the benefit of the club, and because at the end the club is local, so the local people take the advantage of a club well run. At the end, all that goes away when you deliver results.
Yes, we had this in England many times, and I saw Fiorentina as well recently, been playing their matches with no Italian players at all. You're saying that if the team wins, the fans don't mind?
As long, once again, the teams wins and the player understand what the soul of the team is, and you really need to make them understand how important it is to be part of this project. I clearly see the players coming up to England, for example. Okay, at the beginning, it's a new challenge for them, and they have to understand how they have to fit into this new culture. But once they fit in, I think they're part of the project.
Bart, do you have any relationships like that with other clubs? Club Brugge, have you got partnerships elsewhere?
We don't have any partnerships today, but I can understand owning maybe a second team in another league can be interesting, because we have a difficulty in our league, that is that our second team is competing at a level which is too low. They are not ready to become to the first team. So we try, but we like to keep the players with us because we follow them very well. And if we loan them to other Belgian clubs, it's not so wise, it's not so good, because the shape they come back, we have problems often with it. So maybe owning a club in another league in a smaller country can be interesting. We didn't take any decisions. The disadvantage is if these both clubs play Europa League, you cannot compete. One of the clubs cannot play, and that's something difficult to tell, I think, to the fans, because the fans, the local team, okay, you make a choice there. So for us, we stick to Club Brugge, and we try to work together with other teams, definitely, and maybe we can help each other.
I'm going to open up to the floor in a minute. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Just coming back to what I mentioned earlier, that we saw her a lot at the World Cup. Rihanna, who's apparently, now football is her new love, and she wants to invest in a football club. Would you recommend that she follows that line or not? Is it a good time to come into football, Gino?
Well, I think it is. The football industry is growing. And even I'm looking at the situation in Spain and Italy, where the economy is not brilliant, but if you look at the numbers of football club, they are improving. The TV rights are sold at higher value. There's more money from sponsoring. So really, I mean, the brands are stronger than ever, and I think is definitely a very good industry to invest.
So Rihanna could replace Elton John at Watford, perhaps?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
Not for the moment.
Okay. Bernhard, what would your advice be?
My advice is if Rihanna wants to have a little bit more publicity, I would say yes, invest in a football club if she has not enough yet. But honestly, for sure, to say in a Swiss football club or in general a football club of a mid-sized league to invest for return, for financial return would not be, for a quick financial return would not be the right advice. I think there are many soft factors which could be in favor of investing, in particular to love football, for instance, to love a club, to love to develop something. But if you just want to get a quick return out of your investment, I think football would not be the right way to invest. Maybe you should seek for other companies.
Bart?
I agree with both. I think it's the model of football is still growing because people are looking and seeking for experience which are unique near to their door, and we are offering that. Football is #1 worldwide. But you have to do it with a long-term strategy. You cannot do it with a quick buck. That's something that doesn't going to work.
Let's open up to the floor. Who would like to ask the first question? Yes, a chap over here with a blue shirt.
Thank you very much for the interesting talk. I just wanted to ask the panel a question about the FIFA's deregulation of the agents. What's their view on this?
Gino, do you want to start?
Well, it's difficult to say. In a way,
you mean in FIFA House it's difficult to say, or
it's difficult to say what the impact will be. In terms, I don't really care about the substance behind. I mean, the license itself. I look at the guy and look at the agent at his ability to deliver. Okay, so the fact that it's not regulated is going to be interesting to see what the impact will be. But personally, I don't think that the fact that it will be deregulated will change. I mean, the best person, the best agent, the one that are more prepared, will keep on working, and the one and people coming in without a license but without knowledge and ability will really not be able to bring much. I don't think it's going to make a big difference in that sense.
Okay, Bernhard.
Yeah, okay, I think I had the chance to be on a panel here 2 or 3 years ago, and my proposal would have been, or my preference would have been that there would be formed a sort of an international, like on the lawyers' bar attitude, bar quality, agents quality, which would be sort of the result of a self-regulation by the agents, and you would be part of it or you would be excluded from the agents themselves. But I think this could not happen for several reasons. So we have to cope with the actual situation. I think it is a shift of responsibility from the FIFA to the national associations, which is understandable maybe from the point of view of FIFA. For us as clubs, it could pose new problems, and I'm a bit afraid that in the future I will not have to deal with 1 or 2 agents at the table, but with 4 or 5 which are part of the deal, which can mean for me that the deal could be even more expensive in terms of the agent fees than in the past. And I don't hope that this will be the result, because I think we should try to find there some sort of limitation so that the money stays within the circle of football.
Bart, do you have anything to add?
I've not so much to add to what is already said. For me, it's a missing chance that the UEFA is not regulating this thing worldwide, because football is a worldwide business. And if we have to deal it with national regulations everywhere, they're never going to work.
Next question. Yes, got a couple of hands in the middle there.
Just wanted to ask the panel, do any of you target specific territories in terms of getting players in? Because I know recently there was Yoichiro Kakatani came into Basel, particularly when you're looking for value, you're now looking at specific territories around the world.
I think it's also part of our means, or our possibilities. So it's clear that we cannot actually target players from the big leagues. Our experience is that we would not get the right ones who would come from England or France to us, only in exceptional cases. Young players. So we have to find new markets, and we spoke about scouting. I think we should be there realistic. It changed a lot in the last years. We are not sending out a scout to a certain country and say, bring us a good player. This is gone, this is past. We should try to work very diligent. We speak in transaction business of due diligence. I think this is something which has not been done enough in the past by the football clubs. Hire for attitude. Go into this country, try to check on his environment, speak with his family, in particular if it is a player from a country which is not just a border country like from Austria, but if you are looking for a player from another country, other culture, other religion, you have to do a lot. I think you have to hire very diligently. And certainly if you have a player from one country, you tend to take another one from the same country. Maybe even you tend to take another one from the same agent, which is not always the best. But it is something that we did in our case as well. We had a player from Egypt and we took a second one, and now we have a third one from Egypt. The first one is gone already. So sometimes it's good for the group that there are two from the same country, from the same culture, to help each other. Sometimes, it depends also on the personality, it's not good because they don't integrate as you would like it to do. So I think it's a case-by-case opportunity-based business.
Do you know?
Well, yes, I agree with the fact that there are countries in which, as